Hi, beautiful people. Welcome back to the channel. Shantia here. So welcome to episode 3 of Worthy, Flirty, and Thriving. Today I wanted to go ahead and talk about how we can rewire our nervous system. And this is especially dedicated to the women out there because that is my story and that's what I've seen and witnessed amongst women. Altogether, though, we in society are experiencing increasing amounts of anxiety because we're overstimulated thanks to technology. So unfortunately, we have to teach ourselves and discipline ourselves to take a break from being around people too often or using technology too often because we're absorbing way more information, thus the short attention span. We're absorbing way more information than we usually do. So as opposed to being able to just like read a book for, a 1 hour period of time, now we watch TikToks and Instagram stories. So that's how, because our mind desires for entertainment. It desires to intake information and media. So we have to teach ourselves discipline. Now, rewiring your nervous system, this is something I'm absolutely very passionate about talking about because I've had anxiety since I was young. As a child, I was a shy, introverted kid. And I didn't really like being around a lot of people. So I would hermit away. But when I was in front of people or I had to do presentations, I just remember as I got older experiencing increasing amounts of anxiety. And today I'm really going to be sharing a huge part of what shifted my journey, which was my car accident that I had about 6 years ago. It changed my life. It changed the way that I acknowledged myself. It made me understand the importance of how I needed to rewire my nervous system. Otherwise, things were just going to keep going downhill. Okay, so today I'm going to share with you guys specifically 4 tips on how you can rewire your nervous system. So women, why are women experiencing more of an stimulated nervous system, especially because women specifically are being called to use more of their masculine energy. Now, what's great about equality is that women have more opportunities to be seen. The only aspect of it that hasn't been so helpful is sometimes we forget that we're still women. Hormonally, our bodies are different, which means we don't have the capacity to take as much stress or duress, like physical duress in life. Men are hardwired for that. We not so much. They're hardwired for that because they were built to protect the feminine. That's why they're hardwired for that. So if they're not protecting the feminine, then their masculine energy is still unbalanced. But as a feminine, using and overworking your masculine energy is going to raise your cortisol levels and it's going to decrease your estrogen to the point where it's imbalanced. So thankfully, even though I was experiencing really high periods of stress in my life, because I was pursuing creative pursuits and because I was pursuing a creative degree in college, I feel like that's what saved me because I was always tapped into that fluid energy. And that fluid energy is your feminine essence. That's what helps you to relax. That's what helps you to enjoy life. So if you find yourself anxious and not able to enjoy life, not able to be present with your partner, your friends, or your kids, that has a lot to do with you overworking your masculine energy. So we're going to talk about some ways that you can decrease it and enjoy your life. Okay, so let's start with tip number 1. My tip number 1 for how you can rewire your nervous system so that you're not active and reacting to things and anxious all the time is awareness, self-awareness. And the way that I learned how to gain self-awareness was through journaling. There are 3 methods I like to use for journaling. I like to use writing. I like to do voice memos, just hit a button on my phone and record. Or I like to do video journaling where I hit record on my computer and just talk. I've been journaling for 8+ years. And this has helped me to gain so much self-awareness so that my psyche has been able to rewire itself, or I've been able to intentionally rewire it so that I can process my thoughts in a much more healthy manner as opposed to being anxious and scattered. So journaling is absolutely life-changing. Even though I had been journaling for 8 years, 6 years ago was when I had my car accident. And that was another huge shift in my life beyond, having the spiritual awakening. And I will bring God and spirituality into these conversations. I can't teach what I teach without bringing God into the conversation. So about 6 years ago, I had a car accident. At that time, I was more stressed than I'd ever been. in my life. I was working part-time, going to school full-time, was in my senior year of college, and was experiencing the worst conflicts amongst my coworkers. I was working with people who were like twice my age and yet acted half my age. And I was venting at that time in the car. I was venting, and I actually was doing a voice memo. I was journaling and I was venting and I was letting out all of my anger. And that was a moment that I started to hear this really loud sound, and it felt like it sounded like a plane was flying over my head. And then all of a sudden, it was like I was in a video game. My car just started wiggling itself, and I couldn't even control it. And it spun. It turned, and it did a 90-degree angle onto the median. I was going about 60 miles per hour at the time. So I heard this really loud sound, and then all of a sudden my car just starts screeching and turning all over the road like I'm in a video game. And I was so lucky I didn't hit anyone. My car did a 90-degree angle onto the median and into the cable wires. Thankfully, the median was huge, whereas in some locations the median is like very, very short. But thankfully, it was huge. So it allowed my car to de-accelerate and slow down. And I maybe could have saved my car by hitting the brakes, but I wasn't sure if that was going to help it. So I felt like I wasn't sure if I hit the brakes that was going to cause it to shift even further. Anyways, long story short, I totaled my car. My reaction wasn't that huge, but what I realized was what created that was at that time I was going through the highest level of stress in my life. And I was angry and I was venting. And so I developed I'm saying this with quotations around the word superstitious because it wasn't actually superstitious. I was actually onto something. But I developed a superstitious belief that my venting caused that accident because it was my energy. At the time when I was in college, I was so stressed out in my senior year, trying to graduate on time, trying to get all the credits added up. I was having more breakdowns than I'd ever had before. I was living on the edge when it came to money, and I was crying. I was going through bouts of depression and anxiety, and I felt so alone and isolated. But I was still trying to push myself and get through it. And for me, the way that breakdowns work, I always find a way to push myself up because I don't like being in that dark place for very long. I can sit in it, but not for very long before I literally just I get this feeling in my body where I just have to rise up and resolve it. But from then on, I realized that I had to rewire my nervous system. I couldn't be in this reactive mode all the time, reacting to this, reacting to that. I couldn't be acting like a little girl throwing tantrums. I had to become an adult. I had to change and shift my emotions and be a lot more mature in my reactions. So I started setting the intentions to rewire my nervous system and just behave differently, calm my energy, meditate, calm my energy. Okay. So awareness is what's going to help you to catch it. And really the only other task then, how do we calm ourselves down, is to just learn how to be in a place of neutral, right? When we feel our emotions reacting, pull it back here. Not repress it, but pull it here. Keep it here. Don't put it out there towards other people or towards out there in the world. Keep it here. Keep it here and feel it. And you guys may have seen my other videos in my other series. I always talk about letting the emotions flow. Let the emotions flow and just feel it. Keep it here. So my tip number 2 is what I have here is overstressing is wasted energy. Overstressing is wasted energy. Now, stress is natural. Stress is what helps us to keep the baby safe. Stress is what helps us to keep ourselves safe. Stress is what helps us to pay the bills when it needs to get paid. But overstressing is wasted energy. It will drain your energy. It's wasted energy. So when you take a story and you keep recycling that story over and over again and holding onto that story and just holding onto it and talking about how this thing happened to you over and over again, you're overstressing and you're wasting your energy. It's a waste of energy because what you could be putting that stress towards is when you use stress in a productive way is you can find a solution to the problem. That's what you want to do. You don't want to just get stuck on the problem. You want to find a solution to the problem. So instead of over stressing about things and turning it into this big story, turn that stress into motivation for resolving it as soon as you can. So for me, like if I ever get like a feeling about, let's say like money or I have to get something done or I have a deadline, then I start getting it done. That's why stress is good. So use that stress, but redirect it towards getting things accomplished and focusing on the solution as opposed to the problem. I am a Virgo, okay? I'm a Virgo. We are naturally a little bit high strung in some ways. I'm not always high strung. I'm actually very chill in some areas of life. But we can be very high strung sometimes and like overthinking. And what I've taught myself, because I've noticed this about women, it's like they'll just start stressing about things and just talking about this and just focusing on the problem. And I'm just like, it's a story. The thing is, you lose sight of joy. You lose sight of being present when you're just in your head creating all of these stories. And so I'll watch people and I'm talking to them, but really I'm talking to their stress. You know, I'm talking to their fear. I'm talking to their stress. But I'm like, but who's the person? And so I don't stress about things. I'm like, if I miss something, I miss something. Okay. The only thing I'm really here to do is experience life. There are certain things that most definitely have consequences, but I just trust. I trust that I'm taken care of. I trust that God has me. I trust that sometimes if I miss like let's say I miss a deadline or there was like a meeting I was supposed to go to and I completely fell asleep and missed it. And I was just like, oh my gosh. But when I like logged on, it was like a virtual. When I logged on to go to the meeting, it was like at the very end of it. And they're like, oh, it's totally fine because someone else arrived. So I was like, oh, there's no point in stressing about this. There's just no point in stressing. Don't hold on to the stories because you're going to develop the habit of holding on to stress. You want to learn how to like, again, use it to solve a problem, but don't hold on to it to the point where it becomes a habit to just stress about anything. All right, so tip number 3, stop overworking yourself. So I was just talking about the masculine energy. It's not normal for us to work as hard as men do in that sense. No, we can work, but it's a different, like we can work beautifully. We can create a lot of success, but it's through our feminine energy. You absolutely need masculine energy to create like a container. So you're not just pulling in money, but you're not able to keep it. Right? Masculine energy is about that structure. It's about that discipline. You need that. But feminine energy is what you want to use if you're going to make money, right? Let's just say you want a business, you want to make money. Instead of doing a 9-to-5 where you labor, do a 9-to-5 where you're doing something more fluid, right? That allows you to tap into your creative energy, your flowy energy of ideas. These are the people who are able to acquire more success in their lives. But if you start thinking like too much structure, too much rigidity, it just doesn't work for us as women. So stop overworking yourself in anything, in any kind of capacity. You know, if you feel like you have to prove to someone something, you have to prove your worth somewhere, pull that energy back towards you. You don't have to do any of that. And in fact, doing that is having the opposite effect. You think it's going to help you gain more respect, but people actually will, and when you get out of energetic alignment, they'll lose interest in you. They'll lose interest in your energy. Feminine energy is rich. It's rich. Just think about like a very nurturing figure. Being around them, it's just so warm. It's so comforting. You're not overly concerned about, oh, how much work, how many hours did this person plug in? That's not for us. That's not for women. About plugging in hours, that's not how we acquire our strength, our growth, our notoriety. We're remembered for our hearts. We're remembered for caring for people. We're remembered for being of a nurturing presence. Just look at all the women who are remembered in history. Princess Diana, remembered for being the people's princess. The people's princess. She cared about people. She cared about mental health. The people's princess. Michelle Obama. She cared about the people, right? A huge figure in the community, in the Black community, of someone we look up to, the way that she carries herself, right? Someone who jokes about, you know, enjoying Beyonce and is so relatable, right? She's not talking to you about how many hours she plugged in, and that's making us say, wow, you're such a great person because of all of the hours you plugged in. Okay. So stop overworking yourself. What I would suggest that you do is find a way to transition out of those experiences. So if you have a job where there is some flexibility, find a way to create that. What I would like, the best place to start is by creating a love list. whenever I want to manifest something more into my life, I create a love list. So my love list is the desired things that I want to experience. So for example, if I have an ideal job in mind, I'm going to put on that list all of the ideal things I want to experience in that job. I'm like, oh, I want this, I want that, I want that. And then voila, I find myself manifesting the job. You know, in the previous video, I talked about the 3 qualities I was looking for in my next job: creativity, communication, and connection. And I got all of that. Creativity, communication, connection. Here's the job. This is for you. There it is. So create a love list and find a way to transition out of that position. If you have like a fear of money. So again, what do we often stress about? We stress about our own physical well-being. We stress about our kids, and we stress about money. Those are usually the 3 main things that women often stress out about. So creating an energetic security around those things is what's going to help you to resolve that. But pulling your energy away first, that's going to be one of the main ways, is stop overworking yourself or putting all of this excess of energy. If you think people are going to love you more for doing more, that's not it. That is not it. It does not work for feminine energy. You are remembered for what you bring, how present you are with people. Okay, so tip number 4 is to educate yourself. Educate yourself or challenge yourself to step out of your comfort zone. This is how you rewire your nervous system. So for me, this was signing up for a public speaking club. This helped me to get out of my comfort zone of the fear of being in front of people or talking in front of people, which was something I was genuinely passionate about, something that I had always wanted to do. So I practiced it, and I've been doing it for 2 years. But on top of that, I do YouTube. I do a lot of video journaling. I rehearse some things. I don't really rehearse these videos, but I do rehearse my speeches a lot. I put in a lot of dedication and energy because I enjoy it. And that's the key. There's nothing wrong with plugging in the hours, but if you don't enjoy it, it's absolutely pointless. Let me just say that. So there's some things that you plug in work for example, like educating yourself about money. That's important. So if you're stressing about money, educate yourself on being more financially literate. And we have a lot of concepts. Like the minute you just start reading the book, you start educating yourself, it relieves you of that tension. A lot of us have stress about money because we're not looking into it enough. We're not looking into understanding how it works. We're not putting forth the effort we can into either saving it or investing it. We're not teaching ourselves to invest it. You should educate yourself on how to invest it. I'm sure there is a basic way for you to do that. I remember I was talking to a cousin and she was talking about how she was investing money. And I was like, oh, why don't you tell me how this works? And quite frankly, I have to re-educate myself. I did take a business class where I learned the same information, and I'm watching videos where I'm relearning the same information again. But I'm like, I'm the type of person that I'm like, I got to relearn it until it really sinks in for me. Educate yourself, then you won't be stressed. So something that's very mysterious or unknown, like money, or maybe you have a fear of like having kids, for example, just educate yourself on those things. If you have a fear of like being in a unhealthy relationship dynamic, educate yourself on what it's like to be in a healthy relationship dynamic. Look at people who are in healthy relationship dynamics and see what are they doing. So this is called the preparation, but more importantly, it's an energetic preparation that you're doing. The more you rewire yourself to understand that there's no need to be fearful of new experiences, the less you have to be nervous about. You know, I've learned I can just do things. I can get out of my comfort zone and I can practice something and then become good at it. That's what I learned. I'm like, there really is nothing to fear. I can do it. So like when my club asked me to take on the presidency role, there wasn't any like major fear blockages that came up for me. It was more like, oh, okay, I called this into my life. I called this into my life. And they're asking me, okay, how are you feeling about it? I'm like, well, I'm taking it in stride. I'm not promising to be like the perfect leader. I can't tell you that. But I just know that I wanted to step up into a place of leadership so I can understand the responsibility and the obligations and take them on and be consistent. I needed to see that for myself, that I could do that. I wanted to experience it for myself. I called it into my life. So call things into your life where you can experience it and learn and re-educate yourself and become more comfortable. So rewiring your nervous system as a woman is so vital. It's so important. I understand that a lot of us experience anxiety on a regular basis, but there is a way for you to release and relinquish yourself of that anxiety. I used to experience so much anxiety all the time, and now I don't. I'm just like, it's not, I experience anxiety when I'm like, my heart's like racing and I have to go do a speech or I have to go talk or do like be in front of people. I get a little bit nervous, but I've just gotten used to it. I'm just like, oh, you do it anyways, right? It's nothing fearful. It's not, oh, I got to run away. I used to run away when I was nervous or avoid. But when you avoid, you're depriving yourself of the opportunity to understand your capabilities and your strength and empowerment. And empowerment is something that you want to be improving on for yourself. You want to empower yourself, and you empower yourself through educating yourself, through challenging yourself. So the best ways to challenge yourself, honestly, is to engage in activities that you've always wanted to do, something that you've always had on your bucket list, that dance class you've always wanted to do, that place you've always wanted to travel, reawakening your passions. This is what helps to rewire your nervous system. So part of it is like decreasing, and self-awareness is pulling away from engaging and reacting. And part of it is also putting yourself out there in the world, doing things differently and taking action in a way that's healthy for you. Okay, so your homework assignment is to journal about some of the areas that you are anxious about, areas where you feel a lot of anxiety. What is that? Is it your job? You can also get specific. What about your job is causing you stress? What about your relationship dynamic is causing you stress? And then I want you to think of some ways that would help you to rewire your nervous system. So you can think of immediately, like, what would be fun? What's something fun you would like to experience in your relationship, in your job, your current relationship, like your current situations. And then also make a list of some new things that you've always wanted to do as well. And I want you to choose one or two of those things on either of those lists to implement. So things that you can take action on. That's the secret. That's the masculine energy that we absolutely need. You can't get away from it. If you don't take action, nothing's going to change. So try to figure out how can you shift your feminine energy to become more magnetic for your desires, but also shift your masculine energy to take action towards things that are actually enjoyable, as opposed to things that are draining you. Nothing sucks more than like, oh my gosh, I'm using all of this limited supply of masculine energy to do things I hate, to do things I'm not passionate about. Are you kidding me? I'm not going to waste my masculine energy towards doing things I'm not passionate about. That's why I transitioned out of my job. I transitioned towards doing something that was more enjoyable. But sometimes it's just your approach, how you approach something that could absolutely shift your perspective. You don't have to quit the job. You don't even have to get out of the relationship to think like, oh, this isn't serving me. Maybe you can just shift the way that you're perceiving it currently. That way you can enjoy it now, and you don't have to enjoy it 10 years down the line, which just sounds very painful. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed that episode 3 of Worthy, Flirty, and Thriving. I will be back for another one, and I hope you guys are enjoying this series, Worthy, Flirty, and Thriving. I'm having a lot of fun talking about things that I feel like can really help aid women in shifting their energy so that they can enjoy their life so much more.